Well, hello. This video is for day 24, which is Monday, November 26th. This is the Monday you just returned back from Thanksgiving. Hope it was nice. Students are coming in with rough drafts of their first four web text sections. Well, their first four research report sections, right? Which they will convert into various pages on their web text. Again, we're trying to push students away from thinking of this as a traditional research report that's on 5 different web pages within a larger thing, and we're trying to get them to make it a web text in the way that a Kairos piece is. So it has multiple pieces, multiple ways of engagement, but the research content is delivered that way through the engagement and the design of the piece. So we're trying to push them toward design thinking, but since we have a limited time and we have to get through it, we're having them extract out the language and ideas into a kind of more traditional form up front so they can work with it. So what I'd like you to start with, because this is the week before the last week, and you're going to start holding conferences the following week, you should start preparing them for the conferences. So what I would do is I would pass out the self-assessment report to them and tell them that they must come in with it filled out next time. If there are any questions about it, for instance, if there is an extension project they've turned in but haven't got feedback on yet to know if it's complete or not, have them err on the side of optimism, and you can negotiate that when you get there if the piece isn't done. Likewise with revisions, if they were going to revise Project 1 and you're still taking those, assume that the Project 1 revision that they're going to turn in at the end of the class is going to count. But you might not get to it all by the time you conference with them, so they should assume that way. For those conferences, they should also plan to bring any pieces that haven't got feedback yet. That way, perhaps you can give them feedback on the spot. Read through their revised literacy narrative together and let them know up or down, yes or no, right then and there. And it also gives you a piece of writing to focus on, which is a nice thing for the conferences. We'll talk about the conferences more in a couple videos, though they're a lot like the midterm conferences. The next thing to hit on, you should also pass out the sign-up sheet for the conferencing, by the way. Either here or at the end of the class, whatever you think will be not as distracting. So the big thing you're doing up front is a workshop on those first four parts of their research report. These are the introduction, which is the home page on the web text, the data gathering methods, the background, data gathering methods, and findings. Each of these sections will end up as any number of web pages in the web text itself, but they're sort of the stuff that needs to be covered for this to be an effective piece of research. What I propose you do is you get them into groups of between 3 and 4 projects per group, so that they have some means of comparison here. That's, I suppose, as few as 6 people and as many as 8 or so. I wouldn't go more than 8 people. But the goal here is to, instead of one person reads all of the parts of their draft, I want everyone to read the first part, and then the person next to them reads the first part, and then the person next to them reads the first part, and for them to actually be read aloud. Part of the reason you're doing this is to compare across the whole group different approaches to this part of the genre, and also to get a sense of who's more developed, essentially. It's not necessarily a better or worse kind of thing, but it is a more or less kind of thing, knowing that these are drafts that can continue to expand. As you go through each section, the question should be how well, you get through all of the intros, how well are these satisfying the requirements of this project as they were laid out, the rhetorical functions of each of these sections. And it is about rhetorical functions here. That's the purpose of going through and focusing on just one section, is the background section needs to, yes, present what other scholars have found about this, but also to build a bridge toward your own research. Where you can say, scholars have said all of these things, scholars haven't yet talked about this, and now I go into talking about how I gather data to answer that question. So really identifying the functions of these sections and evaluating them on that level is what this workshop is about. I go through some directions in the worksheet, which you may find more or less helpful. Next thing after that is the demonstration of the accessibility audit. Now, for this one, I want you to more or less ignore what is in the binder. That was assuming we were going to have students use another digital tool for evaluating their WordPress sites. And I think it's probably too soon for that. They might not really have that much up on their WordPress sites yet. And B, that was another digital hurdle that really didn't seem useful at this part of the quarter. So I've cut it out and simplified it. What you will find on Canvas is a worksheet, a sort of scavenger hunt that guides them through different things to look for in terms of accessibility and accessible web design. It also sort of mirrors some of the questions that they saw in the accessibility training from before. That worksheet will exist by the time you get to this, so take a look at it, and it should give some basic directions on how to do it. You can go through this together with a model website. I'll be providing a sort of basic problem website for you to look at. Or you can leave it to them for homework, and they could do it on their own. Either way, the idea here is that they are learning what to look out for, how to identify potential problems, and how to fix them. That doesn't guarantee that their pieces will be perfect at the other end, but it does improve the chances that they will be. I would then go over the homework that you have. The one piece of homework is to write down and keep track of your conference time. Hold them accountable for that. The goal is to do the accessibility audit before, in this curriculum where it was a digital thing, it was said by the end of the night. You could do it by Wednesday. Truth is, you could have them do it by Friday. And then there's even more effect of there being more stuff on the website. So decide when you want that accessibility audit worksheet to be due. In some ways, the farther in the future, the more impact it can have. You want them to submit screenshots of their web text with all of the material that they workshopped today represented on it. So you want to see how it fits. Remind them that that doesn't mean you want to see it each section on one page. That means you want to see it built into the design somehow. You want to get a sense of how the design is starting to work. So it can be rough, clearly. They're going to keep changing it, of course, but they need to start making some commitments to design choices here, just as they need to make commitments to language choices. And then finally, their homework for next time is to bring in a draft of their discussion section and to put some thinking into their conclusions for this web text, sort of what it all adds up to. You want to remind them of what the discussion is for. You can go back to the prompt for some of that, but in essence, the discussion is where the analysis happens. the findings section is where you said, I got 15 interviews and 8 of them responded in this way and 7 of them responded in this way. It stops there, the findings section. It doesn't say anything about why that matters or why that's important. You get to the discussion section and you say, well, this split could be explained really by thinking about the way people address politics and the way that politics influences their reading habits on a daily life. And maybe it explains it by doing this and this and this. The discussion section is where you puzzle through the findings. It's where you look closely at the data and say, like, what is this telling me? What can I possibly understand from the results of this survey? That's the spot as well where they can say, well, maybe my survey wasn't good enough. Maybe if I'd done this or that, I would have got clearer results in this way. It's where you assess, it's where you analyze, it's where you synthesize, it's where you try and explain how you are answering your research question. The conclusion is your answer. It is the actual claim that this question has an answer and that you found it, and the degree to which you're certain that you found the right answer. These are difficult things to do. This is the most essayistic part of the report. Hopefully, as they break it into multiple parts of the web text, they can fragment it and build it into multiple places, so this analysis isn't just in one place. But for Wednesday, it should be in one place. Could be, let's say, 2 or 3 pages of essay writing about what the data says. From there, I give them whatever time is left for work time. Could be half an hour, could be 45 minutes, depending how long the other parts take. They can start doing the accessibility audit if they want to. They can dive into building their website some more. They can return to whatever research that they found lately and try and fold that into the draft, or think about what they got in terms of feedback already. So there's that. The rest of the week is leading up to the poster showcase and trying to get as much solidly in place for finishing the web text as possible. Remembering that the poster showcase, they can talk about the new developments in this project, even though the poster was printed a week ago, so it has slightly out-of-date information on it.